This year. I want to fight this year.
What's up, YouTube? This is the Pro Fight Fan, and welcome to the channel where we talk all things fighting. Updates, breakdowns, reactions, and everything in between. In today's video, we're talking about what's next for Israel Adesanya, and we're starting right now. So, last weekend we saw Israel Adesanya continue his dominance in the UFC middleweight division with the mauling of Paulo Costa, who he would beat by second round TKO. In an interview with Ariel Helwani, Adesanya would go on to reveal that he would like to have one more fight in 2020 before the year comes to an end. The question is, who would Israel Adesanya fight next? So let's have a look. Option number one, Jon Jones. Now, Izzy and Jon have been going back and forth in a Twitter war following the Last Stylebender's dismantling of Costa, and this isn't the first time that these two go at it in social media. Jones recently posted a portion of Izzy's post-fight press conference where Izzy states that he has to speak with his longtime coach Eugene Behrman about a move to light heavyweight. Jones would go on to basically tell Adesanya that Izzy's a younger fighter with more fighting experience, having fought over 100 fights, insinuating that the Last Stylebender should be confident to face him now. And then he would proceed to advise Izzy that he'd rip his arm off. Izzy has since responded with a couple of memes saying soon, as well as who's mentioning who, being that Jones has been vocal about fighting him. Izzy would also go on to state that I can admit I was a fan of Jonathan because I speak my truth and live it. Jonathan was my biggest fan. He can't admit it because he lives a lie. You don't know God, Jonathan. With Bones responding, I kept defending you as a fan. Tell me something I didn't know. There's quite a history of tweets between Jon Bones and Izzy, but why and where did it all start? Let's go back in time. March 2nd, 2019. Jon Jones is being interviewed by TMZ, and this is the genesis of Jon Jones versus Israel Adesanya possible fight talk.
Who is there a young fighter or a couple young fighters that you're looking at that you go, those are the future of the UFC? Those are guys that I might be keeping my eye on, that I might have to fight down the line. You're excited to fight down the line, like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Anderson Silva just fought against Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
And he's only a middleweight, but I mean, it doesn't take long to get up to light heavyweight as a middleweight.
When Israel Adesanya says Jon Jones started it, he means it. And if there's one thing you should know about Adesanya, is an elephant never forgets, and neither does he. Adesanya wouldn't go on to respond immediately to the Jon Jones' interview, but would go on to state this in his own interview with TMZ on April 2019.
Recently, we talked to Jon Jones, Izzy, and Jon said, I see myself in the future fighting Israel Adesanya. When you hear that, what do you think about that?
It does tickle my loins. It does make me feel some type of way. I like that fight. And I like challenges. So he's the GOAT right now, right? I already killed one GOAT. I'm hunting the next.
Jones would respond the following day via Twitter, if you think you killed 44-year-old Anderson, you didn't. I'm not really sure what fight you've been watching. You got past the legendary GOAT. Now come F with the king of the jungle. I'll make you call me daddy by the third. Jones would later go on to delete this tweet. Adesanya had his fight with Kelvin Gastelum to focus on and wouldn't really address Bones until his interview with Ariel Helwani following his interim title win, where he would go on to say, Jon Jones, he literally reminds me of what I've hated most in life, and that's bullies. He's a smart boy. He knows I'm a challenge. Jon Jones likes to look for challenges. He's the one that started this and openly called me out because he knows I'm a threat. If you want to beat me, do it yesterday, because every fight I get better. He wants to try and get me out when I'm only a year into the UFC. Adesanya would also go on to state how he's going to get through the UFC middleweight contenders once he fights and obtains the undisputed middleweight belt from Robert Whittaker. Following this interview, we were off to the races as Jones and Adesanya would go on to exchange words via social media, and the appetite for a fight between these two would continue to grow. They would go on to engage in several Twitter wars to this day. Jon Jones as Israel Adesanya's next opponent is by far the most appealing option, as this is one of those fights that would garner mainstream media attention like no other fight can do at this time. Even Dana White has stated this would be the fight to make. But unfortunately, I don't see this being the next option for Adesanya. While I do believe that this is a fight closer to happening now than it ever has in the past, Adesanya has stated in multiple interviews that he never wants to disrespect the sport. He wants to clean out the middleweight division before he fights Jon Jones in a fight he believes will happen in 2021 in Raiders Stadium at any weight. If Jones isn't Izzy's next fight, then let's look at the next possible option, and that's Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier. Since having moved down to middleweight, the Killer Gorilla has shown he can be a problem for anyone in the division. He's an aggressive striker who's looking to stop his opponent as soon as possible. We haven't seen Cannonier in the octagon in over a year since his second round TKO win against the Joker, Jack Hermanson. We'll see him back in action where he'll have his hands full come October 24th, where he's going to be facing former middleweight champion Robert Whittaker. Adesanya has shown great admiration for Cannonier for quite some time, and he stated on several occasions that this is the fight that he wants the most. Cannonier has also shown great admiration for Adesanya, and one would assume that there wouldn't be any bad blood should these two fighters face off. Their clash of styles would still make for an extremely entertaining fight, with Jared Cannonier again being a come forward pressure style fighter and Adesanya getting to show his counter striking ability. I believe that should Jared Cannonier beat Robert Whittaker and come out unscathed, that this will be the fight that we would see next for Izzy in 2020. But coming out unscathed against Robert Whittaker is no easy task, unless you're Israel Adesanya. Should Cannonier be unavailable, whether due to injury, need for recovery, because of a tough fight, or should he lose, there's still other possible options for Adesanya. Logically, one would think if Whittaker were to beat Cannonier, he would be the next option for Adesanya. However, in a recent interview with Submission Radio, Whittaker did state, should he win, he's looking forward to taking a break through the holidays to spend time with his family and his expectant wife. So I personally wouldn't see Robert Whittaker quickly jumping into this fight with Cannonier after beating Darren Till. So personally, I don't think the Robert Whittaker rematch would be a fight we would see in 2020. Now, according to ESPN, top middleweights Darren Till and Jack Hermanson are scheduled to meet in the main event of a UFC Fight Night card on December 5th, and both are names that Izzy has mentioned as possible opponents, but with them being scheduled to meet, I wouldn't see the UFC pulling one of them off of that card to make this a fight for Izzy. Stranger things have happened, but I don't see this as the next possible option for Adesanya's opponent. Now this leaves us with maybe one more option.
What did you make of Israel Adesanya's performance in the co-main event, if you got to see it?
I don't see it. I just see the finish.
A lot of people were talking about him moving up to 205. Would that be a fight that would interest you down the road?
Maybe. Why not? Yeah, he said that before something in the interviews.
Yeah.
So you see, you've got another one. So why not? We can try to do this. So
if Cannonier doesn't win or needs time to recover before heading back into a camp and Izzy wants another fight in 2020, this is the fight to make. I didn't pick Jan over Dominic Reyes, and I believe he was a plus 250 underdog going into the fight with Reyes. At the age of 37, Jan just seems to be getting better and better. Izzy has Nigeria and New Zealand behind him, and now Jan has the entire nation of Poland behind him. Think about it. If Izzy wins this fight, he becomes a champ, a feat that Jon Jones is yet to accomplish, and he takes the title that Jon Jones left behind when he made his move up to heavyweight. It would only further ignite the possible matchup between Jones and Izzy. Now, if Jan wins, Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira would have already fought, as they're looking to have that fight on November 7th in Vegas, and this would allow him time in between the light heavyweight division, creates a #1 contender. Or Jon Jones may decide he would want to reclaim his light heavyweight title if Jan gets a big win over such a high profile name. And if Izzy were to lose a fight to Jan, he's still the middleweight champion, and though his stock may drop a bit, he can go back to middleweight and continue his reign there. And again, if he wins, then we have a huge event between Jon Jones and Israel Adesanya in 2021. If there's anything that Izzy doesn't lack, it's options. Now let me know in the comments below who you think Israel the Last Stylebender Adesanya's next opponent should be. If you enjoyed the video, help out the channel by hitting the like button. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because videos are dropping on the regular. This is the Pro Fight Fan. I'm signing out. I'll see you in the next one.